You see something in the sky, something that shatters your reality and answers the question, are we alone, at the same time. Then you hear a knock at your door. Do you answer it? Today's episode of Men in Black Encounters may have you thinking twice. I'm Carol Ann. Welcome to the In-Between. Our story starts with a story within a story. And we're going to start from the inside out on a small farm on the outer fringes of an Oklahoma City suburb called Midwest City, whose nearest neighbors are 2.5 miles away. It's a dark night in 1964, and a little girl, known only as Mary R., is having a tough night. She and her parents are at odds about something, and the fight is bad enough that little Mary storms out the back door in the only form of protest an 11-year-old can muster. Mary's dad says, just let her go, she'll cool off. But Mary's mom just feels bad about the entire argument and decides to follow her outside and see if there's anything she can do to soothe any hurt feelings. But just as she makes it to the back door, she hears a loud scream coming from the backyard. She runs out the door and is hit with this stench of burning flesh, but just in time to see a round, glowing object in the sky that she later describes as a flying ashtray, rising into the sky and flying off into the night. She looks around and sees Mary lying on the ground 20 to 30 feet from the house. She runs to Mary's side and asks her what happened. Mary can't answer. She is in so much pain that all she can do is whimper and cry. Mrs. R picks Mary up and rushes her back into the farmhouse. They call the police and tell them, send an ambulance. And as if a UFO attacking your daughter isn't weird enough, here's where things veer off into Conspiracy Central. The family calls their local police, which most likely would have been the Midwest City Police Department, but the responding officers are from Oklahoma City. Who called them? And the ambulance that pulls up to the house is from a private company that never takes calls outside of Midwest City, but they did that night. And remember, this is way before 911 is available, so it's not like departments are working together like they are now. Mary is taken to Midwest City Hospital, but then transferred within just a couple of hours to a hospital on Tinker Air Force Base, right next door, even though no one in the R family is in the Air Force, which is required for admittance to that hospital. 2 days later, 3 separate people witness all of the R family stuff being loaded onto 2 large Air Force Blue trucks, and the family is never seen again. Enter the international Dateline reporter for Saucer Scoop magazine named Robert A., better known as Bob, Stiff, who gets wind of the case. This isn't an international case, but it's right in his Oklahoma City backyard. Bob starts his investigation, but gets nowhere fast for several months. Then he manages to gain a contact within the Air Force with access. The contact looks into the matter and tells Bob, I didn't tell you this, but it looks like the whole family and all of their stuff was flown to Washington, D.C. So he keeps digging. And by now, we're talking 3 years after the initial incident at the farm. Bob manages to find a nurse at Midwest City Hospital that remembers Mary coming in that night. The incident is stuck in her head because to her, it was pretty odd. She tells Bob that Mary came in with burns all over her body, like 75% of her body. The nurse says that's not unusual in and of itself. They handle burn cases all the time. What made it stick in her brain is that Mary was burned all over, but there were no singe marks on any of her clothing. Bob keeps digging and keeps pushing buttons. And by June of 1967, finally manages to convince an Oklahoma U.S. Senator, Mike Mulroney, to help him get the Air Force to release their records. Tinker Air Force Base has admitted that they have a file, but won't release it without approval from the Pentagon. Now that in and of itself is pretty significant at this point because Project Blue Book is still active, which was just basically 22 years of the Air Force telling people everywhere around the country that they didn't see a UFO. There's no such thing as UFOs.
Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in a thermal pocket and refracted the light from Venus.
So for them to admit they even have a file is a pretty big accomplishment. But we need to stop right there and move up a layer in our story. Because at this point, June of 67, Bob has a story of his own unfolding. This layer of the story actually starts back on February 7th of 67, as Bob is doing his best to follow his list of leads on Mary's case. The phone rings, which begins a series of 13 phone calls from the same condescending voice, all but 2 of them coming at exactly 7 p.m. each time, spanning the better part of 1967. The first call, just a little friendly advice.
I would suggest you drop your investigations into certain so-called UFO reports.
Who is this?
That doesn't matter, but do as I say for your own good.
Second call, February 23rd.
Mr. Stiff?
Yes, just a moment, please.
This is Mr. Stiff?
You haven't heeded my advice, Mr. Stiff. The information you've gathered concerning certain UFO reports is now useless to you. I would suggest you delve into other subjects and leave the UFO reports alone.
Third call, April 7th.
Mr. Stiff?
Before you start, I think I should tell you that this type of nonsense doesn't bother me in the least. If you got enjoyment from this, you're sick.
I'm far from sick, Mr. Stiff, and I don't enjoy having to do this. But we don't feel it in our interest to have you continue. If you do, we have many means of stopping you.
Such as Martian death rays? Or do you base your calls on Flash Gordon? I don't feel it possible that you actually think I believe all this stuff.
If you don't now, you soon will. I don't know of Mr. Gordon, but I can assure you we have methods other than death rays, as you call them.
Fourth call, April 28th.
Mr. Stiff?
Speaking.
Stop now, or I must do it for you.
Now keep in mind that at this point, Bob hadn't actually published anything about this case until the May edition of Saucer Scoop. So at the very least, the first 4 phone calls come from someone who shouldn't even know he's working on this or any case. Fifth call, May 5th.
Mr. Stiff?
What now?
Did you find what I said about the uselessness of certain UFO information sheets to be true?
Yes, to some degree.
I'm sure it's more useless than you care to admit.
I'm very busy, so please stop calling me, or I'm gonna have these calls traced.
That cannot be done.
What can't be done? Stopping the calls or having them traced?
Both. I shall continue to urge you to stop your hopeless investigations, and the latter threat of having these communications traced cannot be accomplished.
Sixth call, May 12th.
Mr. Stiff?
Speaking.
The information concerning the burn case you've gathered will be of no help to you now. How much proof do you require before you believe this is no game?
I want to tell you something, whoever you are.
At least you didn't say, whatever you are.
I'm not frightened by this nonsense you continue to pursue. If you were what you pretend to be, I feel you would have other means of communication other than a telephone.
Mr. Stiff, you assume too much. Have I ever said who I am or pretended to be other than a voice of advice?
You insinuate who you are, and I'm in no mood to believe it for 1 minute.
Regardless of your mood, I'm here.
Seventh call, May 26th.
Mr. Stiff?
What new advice do we have tonight?
Your sense of humor may not last long, Mr. Stiff. How is your mail coming these days?
What do you mean?
Has it not fallen off a bit?
No.
I feel you are not being honest, Mr. Stiff. Your correspondence from your representatives in other nations has been less of late, correct?
I hope you know that's a federal offense, tampering with the mails.
I thought you said it hadn't changed.
What is the purpose behind this charade? You must know I don't believe it.
Again, Mr. Stiff, I fear you are not being honest.
In what way?
You are believing more and more?
I fear you are mistaken. Not me.
Have it your way, Mr. Stiff, but we both know.
This brings us to June, which is when Bob got the Senator, Mike Mulroney, on board to help him get the Air Force files released. 8th call, June 9th.
Yes?
You're planning a publication, I understand.
That's right.
Don't.
9th call, June 23rd.
Mr. Stiff,
Speaking.
do you still want more proof?
What do you mean?
How is your publication developing?
Fine.
Come now. Isn't that an overstatement?
I said it was fine. I just haven't had the time lately to work on it.
I understand you've had trouble with your print and in obtaining certain mailing permits.
Your information is incorrect.
I don't think so.
Also in the month of June, Bob was slated to be a guest on a local TV special on UFOs, where he was going to talk about the case of Mary R. Before the scheduled air date, he gets a call from the director who tells him, if you talk about the case of the burnt girl, the producers are going to cancel the show. What? That makes no sense. The director says, I don't understand it either, but that's the word coming down from the station manager. Bob still does the show, but he doesn't talk about Mary. It's about this same time that Senator Mulroney ghosts him. No more muscle to help get the Air Force to release their files. And the one guy at Tinker Air Force Base that Bob had been talking to about the file also left him high and dry. Every time he called the base, the guy wouldn't take his calls, or they would say he wasn't there. Once, when they told him that his contact was out, Bob hung up and called right back asking for the same guy using a different voice, and he was magically connected right to him. Once Bob tells the guy, hey, it's Bob, the guy just hangs up on him. So, I guess they're not going to be releasing any files anytime soon. 10th call, June 30th.
Mr. Stiff?
Do me one favor before you start. Tell me who you are and who it is you're supposed to represent. There'd be no way for me to prove this if you did tell me, and perhaps I might believe some of what you say.
Does it really matter who I am or who I represent?
Yes, it does.
Let's just say that I am a voice and representative that do not wish you to continue in your present pursuits.
That tells me nothing.
Perhaps more than you realize.
Maybe so, but why me? Assuming that you are who you say you are.
I never said who I was.
All right, assuming you are who you seem to be.
The assumptions are entirely your own, Mr. Stiff.
Possibly. But anyway, why me? And why this silly method?
I think you've found this method to be as effective as any, haven't you? You've dropped certain investigations because you could gather no more information. And you are not going to publish a magazine now, correct?
But not because of you.
Really?
You've still not answered me.
You are delving now where you shouldn't.
For example?
I am not a fool, Mr. Stiff.
I know you're speaking of the case concerning the little girl and the Tulsa photograph.
Again, these are your assumptions.
Possibly. But just what do you want me to do?
Don't continue in your present investigations.
And if I do, which I will,
you will be stopped.
Heading into July, Bob is laid up for a bit, but receives this lovely letter in the mail from his boss at Saucer Scoop, Joan Whritenour. Bob, just a short note to inform you that your services are no longer required with Saucer Scoop. You are no longer a director, and your articles are not needed any longer. Please do not write any more because I will not answer. That might be a bit distressing for most people, but not for Bob. He knew Joan well and knew this is not what Joan would do if she were going to fire him. She'd be on the phone giving him a piece of her mind personally. A quick phone call to Joan confirms it. The letter's a fake. 11th call, July 12th.
Mr. Stiff,
Speaking.
you were wise to do as I asked,
What do you mean?
dropping certain investigations.
I haven't dropped them. I've just started others more recent until I can get more information on the previous ones.
There will be no more information to be had, Mr. Stiff.
12th call, August 1st.
Mr. Stiff,
Speaking.
it was not wise to transmit the knowledge of these calls to others.
What do you mean?
When will you realize you're not dealing with fools? We have stopped you many times, and you know it. Now, you've told others of our talks.
They don't believe them any more than I do.
You believe it more than you care to admit.
You seem to think you know a lot more about what I believe than I do, then?
You have a saying, actions speak louder than words.
On August 4th, Bob gets a letter postmarked August 3rd from Oklahoma City. Mr. Stiff, I know what has been happening to you. Please believe me, you cannot beat them. Do as they say for your own good. Signed, a friend. 13th call, August 18th.
Mr. Stiff,
Just a moment, please. I'll see if he's in.
he is.
Hello?
Your comparison theory is interesting, Mr. Stiff.
How'd you find out about that?
You see, we do have means.
Well, several people know about it.
Only 3 people know about your work?
That's right. Those 3 and you.
You must think that one over.
What did you want?
To tell you that we are not pleased with the research you have been doing.
Such as?
I have no time for games, Mr. Stiff. Just know we shall always be informed about what you are doing and that you cannot win.
That is the last time Bob hears from his anonymous caller. The only other moment of cloak and dagger is a note left in his mailbox on September 2nd. No stamp, no postmark. Mr. Stiff, stop now or they will act. Please believe me, they will do it. Signed, a friend. Bob never stopped his investigation into Mary's encounter, but he just didn't have much to work with anymore. Between being ghosted by Senator Mulroney, a 2-time attender of the Bilderberg meetings in 1959 and 1961, and his contact at Tinker Air Force Base, and the witnesses all suddenly singing the same tune of moving vans? We didn't see any moving vans. There just wasn't anywhere else for him to go. But he continued to write for Saucer Scoop magazine for a couple more years, while at the same time serving as director of the International UFO Bureau. But Bob's is far from the only case of out-of-control harassment from these mysterious callers. Take the case of Danny Gordon, a radio journalist for WYVE in Wytheville, Virginia. His case starts in early October of 1987. He's calling around to find content for his news radio program when the sheriff's department tells him with a chuckle, "Hey, we got a great story for you." The night before, 4 police officers, 3 of them deputies and 1 of them former military, called in a report of a UFO. Danny thinks, perfect, and finishes his show with it as kind of a lighthearted way to end a heavy news program. But something happens that he doesn't expect. Tons of people call the station to report that they've seen things in the sky too, totally jamming the station's switchboard. So Danny kind of seizes the moment and a week later on October 19th sets up a special call-in program specifically to talk about local UFO sightings. The station's switchboard is flooded with calls describing egg-shaped objects, flashing red, green, and white lights, and other things in the sky that do not even come close to resembling a plane. Now, all of this is interesting, but Danny's a no-nonsense kind of reporter. There has to be an explanation. Maybe it's some kind of experimental aircraft being tested from Langley Air Force Base. It's the other side of the state, but you never know. So he and others call Langley, who tell everyone that they must be seeing planes refueling mid-air. Seriously? So Danny calls the Pentagon and talks to an Air Force general who tells him planes don't refuel under 13,000 feet. If you guys are seeing things under that 13,000 feet mark, that ain't us. Just 2 days later, on October 21st, Danny and his friend Roger Hall, a former commercial airline pilot, decided to do some boots-on-the-ground investigating and drive south to a sighting hotspot, armed with a still camera and a video camera. After 2 hours of driving around, watching the skies and seeing nothing, they decide to head home. And of course, that's when they see it. As they're driving on Route 21 south into Wytheville, they spot a large, dome-shaped, wingless craft roughly 2 football fields in diameter and up about 1,000 feet, with multicolored strobe lights, lit windows, and a red glowing ball docking with it. Then it just drifts off into the night. The two look at each other. Did you get any pictures? No. Did you? No. So the two go out again the next night, and they see more things in the sky. But this time, they're not as awestruck and manage to take pictures. With the film not even out of the camera yet, Danny calls a press conference for the following day, October 23rd. I'm not sure why, except maybe so he can tell the world that he's no longer a skeptic. He has seen the light, literally. The photos he captures are nothing to write home about, just some grainy streaks of light. Remember, it's only 1987, but evidently they're good enough to capture someone's attention. Because that same night, Danny gets a phone call. An anonymous caller warns Danny that the CIA and federal government are interested in Wythe County UFOs and that he'd better back off. But Danny goes ahead with the press conference, and when he gets home, he sees that someone has broken into his house. They didn't take anything, but to Danny, it seems like someone was looking for something. Fast forward another 6 weeks to December of 1987. Danny, his wife and daughter, plus around 200 others, including an entire school bus full of kids, see 4 silent aircraft in formation over a shopping mall. Danny gets pictures of these too, capturing 4 shape-changing objects that go from teardrops to balls to discs to eggs in 4 images. By this point, much to his wife's chagrin, Danny is all in, and by January of 1988, manages to collect over 1,500 UFO reports just within Wythe County. That's when he gets another call, this time from a retired military intelligence officer. The caller urges Danny to record the call, so in the future, he can say, "I warned ya." So Danny records the call. The caller warns Danny to be careful, or the powers that be will go after his family. The caller says that his own son had died of leukemia because of the caller's own actions. He tells Danny that they can target him with skin contact chemicals on his car door or his steering wheel, or go after his kids. Less than 1 month later, so February of 88, Danny gets a visit at his house from 2 men posing as journalists who'd like an interview. Danny says, sure, invites him in. They interview him for about 45 minutes, with one guy sitting with Danny asking questions and the other guy wandering around the house taking pictures. When they're done, they said, we'll let you know when the article's coming out. But it never did. After a while, Danny calls the paper to find out when the article is being published, only to find out that the newspaper has never even heard of these guys. Not long after that, Danny figures out that the negatives to the shopping mall pictures are gone. By April, Danny's wife takes the kids and moves out. All the cloak and dagger intrigue is just too much. And 2 months later, in June, Danny suffers a stress-induced heart attack. If you ask Danny now, he'll say, don't look up, seeing one of these things is much more trouble than it's worth. Now, having a heart attack because of the stress that's involved in being attacked, if you will, by the men in black is one thing. And believing that the men in black are some covert operation from your own government is another. But what do you do when your own government confirms they not only played the part of the MIB, but harassed a man beyond the point of insanity? Before we charge ahead, let's back up for a second. Most men in black encounters are classified within one of three categories. The ones that seem like living entities, just not human ones. The ones that seem like some kind of bio-robot. And those that are actual human beings sent by our own government to basically scare the crap out of us. The story of Paul Bennewitz belongs to the last, and I believe, the most sinister of the three categories. And the men we're going to talk about may not be the traditional Agent J and Agent K style that we think of from movies, but I contend that they are still men in black, sent out by the government to mess with our heads in any way, shape, or form possible. The story I'm talking about is the one surrounding a man named Paul Bennewitz. In the 1970s, Paul, an engineer, owns a company that works as a contractor for Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Company's doing well, so well that Paul actually buys a house not far from the base, like he can actually see it from his second floor deck. And it's from this second floor deck, around July of 1979, that Paul starts seeing odd lights in the sky, moving in ways that our military aircraft can't move. They can't be ours. Then Paul has an idea. In addition to being an engineer and a physicist, he's also an electronics expert. He sets up some gear in his house and finds a signal way out of the normal military communication range. And it isn't just some wayward signal. It's a series of data bursts. Information. Now, some would say that, above all else, Paul was a patriot. So he gets in touch with the powers that be at Kirtland to tell them what he's discovered. Much to his surprise, they don't laugh him out of the room. Just the opposite. They fund his research and give him equipment to help him with his idea of trying to decode the messages locked inside those data bursts. And not only that, they give him an Air Force liaison, Richard Doty, to help him ferry information back and forth. Richard sees what Paul's found and tells him, maybe it is alien. So Paul gets to work deciphering these data bursts. And it takes a little while, but he's able to refine his program until he starts getting messages that sorta make sense. But the overall gist of these messages is that there are aliens already on Earth to make way for a full-scale invasion by an alien race that is on the verge of extinction. This terrifies Paul. So he starts doing everything he can, including writing a letter to President Reagan to try to get the government to do something. We need to get our ducks in a row and get ready. Richard does what he can do to help, even sharing inside information with Paul that might help him in his work. Paranoia starts creeping into Paul's brain. He knows there are aliens among us. It could be anybody. And he's fairly sure that he's being monitored by someone in the house across the street. The more paranoid he gets, the harder he tries to warn people, and he just can't understand why his information seems to be falling on deaf ears. For years, he continually spirals down into a rabbit hole so deep that he can't get out. His business had to be taken over and run by his associates and his children. He starts losing weight, non-stop chain smoking, and doesn't trust anyone, not even his wife. And the day in August of 1988 when he locks himself in the house and covers every door and window with sandbags is the day his family says enough and checks him into the mental health unit of the Presbyterian Anna Casement Hospital, where he stays for a month before being released into his family's care. He lives the next 25 years in quiet, only touching the fringes of the UFO community until his death in 2003. Now, I think everyone can agree that Paul's story is a very tragic case of the downfall of an unstable individual. Except, Paul didn't just go crazy. He was pushed off that mental cliff. By who? Not by who. By what? Your tax dollars. Okay, there was a who. The United States government, and specifically Richard Doty. The entire project was a premeditated disinformation campaign designed to make Paul believe the aliens were about to attack. The lights that he saw were real. The data burst radio signals that he discovered were real. Everything else was fake. The equipment that Richard supplied to Paul to help him decode the data was designed to say whatever the Air Force wanted it to say. The insider information fed to Paul by Richard was fake. The only other thing that was real was that there really were people spying on him from across the street, but not some alien intelligence, U.S. intelligence. The NSA actually bought the house across the street just so that they could watch Paul and help him by beaming misleading signals to his equipment. So more than one department of the U.S. intelligence family was in on this. Now, this is a story that goes way wider and deeper than this, and is connected to the story of the alien wars at Dulce Base, something I haven't covered here yet. Drop a comment below if you'd like me to dive into that one. But the point here is that our own government went out of its way to lie to its own citizens, and in particular set Paul up in a scenario that sent him spiraling out of control. And like I said, this was all over a period of years, so everyone could see the train wreck happening in slow motion. But did they stop? No. They kept it going with not one bit of concern about what they were purposefully doing to this man's life. Personally, I have no earthly idea how Richard Doty can sleep at night. After his stint with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, he left in 1988 and became a New Mexico state policeman, then eventually retired. He now says he's a UFO believer and still pops up at the occasional UFO convention or in documentaries. But he's also a documented professional liar who lied to Paul Bennewitz for 10 years, watched his mental state decline from the stress of it all, and never lifted one finger to help him. In my humble opinion, there's no coming back from that. Paul believed someone was after him. He just couldn't see them. And whether he thought their origin was human or alien doesn't really matter. And that's not a whole lot different from the other encounters where the MIB were only heard on the telephone. In all cases, the MIB are, at their core, bullies trying to manipulate people to do their bidding. John Keel, writer of the Mothman Prophecy, stated in his open letter to all UFO researchers, which was published in the November 1967 edition of Saucer Scoop magazine, his view that the Men in Black are the intelligence arm of a large and possibly hostile group, and professional terrorists. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they stay hidden, and sometimes they show up on your doorstep. But on those exceedingly rare occasions that they actually do get identified, just remember, even when we can see their true faces, we can never be sure of who they really are. So what's the consensus here? Aliens? Robots? Or soulless government employees? To tell you the truth, I'm not sure which kind is the worst. But if you feel the need to continue to fuel the freak out, click here for another round of black suits and dark sunglasses. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.